Hello, everybody, and welcome back to War for Cybertron and Fall Cybertron characters in TFP. Now, let's not waste any more time. We continue with the Autobot groups regrouping at the Ark, and they see the overall success of their mission. They are happy they managed to get the phase shifter, but they are sad that they lost the other relics, and even more sad at their losses. Bulkhead is the most sad to have lost two of more of his wrecker friends, but glad Springer will get better. The Autobots hold a ceremony and bury them on top of the mountain with the other fallen Autobots. Optimus says their deaths will not be in vain, and while that happens, Ratchet begins tending to Springer's wounds, but he is sad now being the only Autobot medical officer / engineer now. Meanwhile, on the Nemesis, Megatron is repaired finally, and he looks over his cons. He is disappointed at them for the most part, as he says Barricade's team failed, as they were this close to getting the relic, but failed still. He tells Slipstream while she fought for him, she could have called reinforcements to finish off Optimus instead of leaving. But at least one of Optimus's Autobots was dead, but he would have preferred if it was by them instead of Starscream. He is, however, satisfied with Soundwave and Dreadwing for not only getting the relic, but killing one of Optimus's leading figures, but that while Laserbeak died, he died completing the mission. However, Soundwave is extra unresponsive, as he had caused Laserbeak's death, and now Frenzy is the only Minicon he has left. Megatron understands, but doesn't say anything. Then Megs turns to Hardshell, and he is disappointed with his team, saying, "Hardshell, you told me you were the most fearsome Decepticon, but you lost your first fight here, and thus costing us the Toxin." Megatron says, until further notice, they are all to remain until their next assignment, and to not fail him. At the Ark, Jazz is saddened by the deaths of their friends, so he stands on the roof, with Miko joining him as she's sad for them as well, especially for Bulkhead, and she just doesn't know how to comfort him. Jazz and her are comforting each other during this, and then RC shows up, with RC telling them to pass the time the story of how her and Cliff got to Earth. And then RC and Jazz begin to bond more over telling more adventures they had with Cliff during this war. Sometime later, Wheeljack does come back, with him happy to see Bulkhead alive, and that Springer is doing better, but he is quiet after seeing Perceptor and Jetfire's graves. Bulkhead says that once Springer is back, the Wreckers will come back at the cons, stronger, with Wheeljack agreeing as he says he'll make sure to start by stabbing Dreadwing and Starscream through the spark. Ratchet is at work at Perceptor's workstation, and he gets sad about Perceptor, with him finding Perceptor's research log of their time on Earth. Ratchet decides to honor his friend to continue his work on studying Earth and teaching it to others once this war is over. Grimlock is in his corridors still getting repaired since he did suffer ice damage from falling in the water when Optimus arrives. Grimlock looks at him and they stand there in silence until Grimlock says that he shouldn't have charged at Starscream the way he did, as if he hadn't, then he could have aided in the fight, maybe even saved Perceptor. Or maybe if he had let the rest of his team come to Earth, they would have had an easier time winning this war, and maybe it would be over already. But Optimus stops him and says that he didn't do anything wrong, as he was trying to help them the way he knows how to, and that the past can't be changed, but the future can, which is why Prime is making an effort to apologize to Grimlock. Grimlock says that he doesn't need to, as he always thought he made the right choices back then, and Prime was always wrong whenever they went against his decisions. But now he sees he was wrong at times, and that Prime was right at times as well. Optimus smiles and says that Grimlock was right a lot of those times as well. But now they both have to learn to be right for not just themselves, but for their friends and family. Grimlock smiles at this, and the two shake hands and vow to lead their team together as one. A few days later, Raphael is going over photos of Bombi and the other Autobots scattered across the world that were taken when he comes across a picture of a Cybertronian escape pod. Optimus takes a team to investigate RC, Bombi, Bulkhead, Jazz, Ratchet, and the aerial bots. There they see the downed Decepticon origin ship, but are attacked by the several cons. Superion is formed with him tearing through the Insecticons, but then they see blaster fire from behind as a white and blue bot comes out, as it is revealed to be Smokescreen, with him killing several cons. He accidentally shoots the leaking energon, causing an explosion. Smokescreen grows, "Is that too hot for you cons?" With that scene going pretty much the exact same, but Smokescreen does salute Silverbolt and the aerial bots as well, given their high ranks in the Autobot military. When they return, Smokescreen is happy to see all the Autobots there, but he also especially is when he sees Grimlock, with Grimlock happy as well, and he would be the one to ask what happened to him, with Smokescreen explaining the same story. It's also revealed that the guard that he gave the slip to was Ramjet. Grimlock would vouch for him as being legit, as he tells him about the time that they were in Iacon after Prime left, so the other Autobots believe and trust him as a actual Autobot. Jazz and Jack would take Smokescreen to get a new vehicle mode, with him fanboying over Jazz, with Jazz being a little bit strict, but he's still chill with him, taking on a mentor role for the kid. At Starstream Ship, his team are assessing what happened and that they won the fight mostly, but when Dragstrip is skimming through the internet, he finds a picture of red energon, with Starstream calling for them to head there. Raphael finds the same image, with Optimus calling Fowler, who tells them where the red energon was taken. Starstream's team arrives first to the location, and they try to get it, but then Optimus, with RC, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Bumblebee, and the aerial bots arrive, with Wheeljack saying he'll make sure to have his sword go right through his spark by the end of this. But Starstream puts on the Apex armor and says he'll reunite Wheeljack and Bulkhead with Decepticon. Superion tries to attack Starstream, and while he's able to fling Starstream, Knockout uses not only the stun rod, but Breakdown uses a high-powered gun from the ship to blast at Superion's ankles. Dead End, with two swords, like in his TFP figure, uses them to slash his joints, causing the aerial bots to decombine, but the other Autobots try their best to hold them off, while Optimus and the Autotroopers try to face Starstream. But he is too much of a challenge as he kills the troopers and breaks Optimus's arm. At base, Grimlock wants to go out there, but Ratchet says he's still recovering from the ice damage done to him, given he went under the water at the Arctic without any protection for his internal systems. But then Smokescreen, Sideswipe, and Jazz return, as Sideswipe was out on a scouting mission, and they hear about what's going on. Smokescreen would say, "Starscream, I heard stories about that notorious traitor turned head Decepticon of Cybertron." Optimus would be getting stepped on by Starscream, and Starscream says, "Megatron made the one mistake of letting you live, but I will finish you off and take this armor to defeat Megatron next." Then a ground bridge opens, with Sideswipe slashing at the armor, and Jazz using the force field generator on the armor to knock him off Prime. And then Smokescreen comes through, showing off his new vehicle mode. Starscream asks, "Who is this?" And Smokescreen says, "He's Smokescreen, and you must be Starscream. I thought you'd be taller." Then he does the same thing as Cannon, knocking Starscream out of the Apex armor. Smokescreen then says, "Now that was a plan." Starscream would try to shoot the tower down, but Jazz uses the force field generator to stop the rocket from hitting it. Starscream would get sucker punched by Optimus, using his only one good arm. But during this, Knockout uses the prod on Jazz, and he grabs the force field generator back, saying, "Finders keepers." Starscream orders a fallback, so they retreat, and thus the Autobots manage to grab the whole entire red energon, and they bring it back to base. Smokescreen is congratulated by Jazz and Sideswipe, with even Grimlock saying he did well. The other bots then welcome him fully into Team Prime, with Wheeljack off in the corner as they see this, and he is happy that Starscream got his chassis kicked. But when he sees the armor, he is disgusted by it, since he knows Starscream used it to kill Perceptor, so he walks away. A few days later, in a warehouse, Mech is experimenting and uses Demolisher's body to bring back Silas to life. Silas awakes and he is grateful, but he still kills off his men. He then attacks the military base and retrieves Project Damocles. The cons get Demolisher's signal popping back on, but a little bit corrupted, so they send Barricade, Frenzy, and some Viacons to investigate. And they see Silas, with them disgusted, but they bring Silas Demolisher back, where he says the same stuff as in canon, but there is a lot less tension in the room due to no knockout being here, and that breakdown is a traitor. So what Mecha did to him, the cons have no impact on, and so they don't really despise him as much. Megatron decides to give him a chance, so Silas activates his plan, with that going the same with the Autobots having to stop it. The Aerobots do try to stop the launch of Damocles, but they are distracted by the Insecticons, Skywarp, Dreadwing, and Slipstream. The episode's events otherwise still go the exact same until Silas heads to stop Raphael, as he is attacked by Springer, but he is still injured pretty badly, with him saying he does have better things to do than die tonight. But he continues and uses his sword skills, but Silas has the edge until Smokescreen comes to the rescue and they defeat Silas, with the other Autobots defeating the cons. With Springer saying, "You know, kid, keep this up, and I could see a wrecker future with you." And Smokescreen smiles as the two return to base. When Silas returns, Megatron does yell at him for failure, but then Megatron reveals he also has an idea, as Soundwave shows a picture of the kid Silas gave to them. Silas is happy to be on the team, and he says he will not fail, and that he actually has an idea of how to give them the numbers advantage, as he shows his research that his people did on Nemesis Prime, and how they were able to make a fully automatic drone. And then he points out how they do have a stockpile of Viacon corpses that can provide this advantage. Megatron smiles, saying this is the advantage he needs. Sometime later, Smokescreen is out driving with Sideswipe Bombi when he hits that one human driver, but when he transforms and messes with the guy, Sideswipe actually stops the human from taking the picture. RC and even Jazz chew him out about it, with the other Autobots deciding he needs a human guide, so Jack is chosen, with that pretty much being the same. Soon, Soundwave decodes the next relic, with Megatron having Silas make a decoy beacon, as he did in canon, but this time a lot later, to distract the bots. The Autobots detect this decoy beacon, so Optimus, RC, Bombi, Bulkhead, and Jazz go to investigate. The cons get to the real relic and find it is the Star Saber, so they try their best to retrieve it. Smokescreen and Jack return, with Ratchet detecting the next relic, so Smokescreen, Springer, and Sideswipe head out. They see the Star Saber, with Springer actually stopping Smokescreen from charging in, so they play it smart by contacting base, to which Ratchet sends all the remaining Autobots to aid them while he goes off to get Team Prime back in base. The aerial bots stop the Nemesis from being able to lift the mountain up, with them dislocating the line, and even doing some damage to the ship, while Grimlock, the Autotrooper, Sideswipe, Springer, Wheeljack, and Smokescreen deal with the ground forces. Megatron and Grimlock charge at each other, but Megatron holds his own against the big bot, with him managing to even shoot him in the gut, and stabbing his blade through one of Grimlock's arm joints. As Megatron may have been a newer gladiator, but he does have one thing over Grimlock: speed and agility. Team Prime arrives, with the rest of the cons falling back, as there's just too many of them. And Optimus is given a ride from Silverbolt to the Star Saber, with him glowing blue, as everyone turns. Optimus uses the power of the Star Saber to slash Megatron's arm off, allowing Grimlock to knock him back. Meg just retreats to the Nemesis, with Optimus almost taking down the ship like in canon. When they return to base, Smokescreen gloats about how they found it, and that it was some plan to hold off the cons. Sideswipe points out that it was his idea, to which puts the two in a back and forth conversation, until the Star Saber starts glowing. Optimus receives the message from Alpha Trion, with it being the same explanation he tells, but he does also tell him of his last moments before death. With Optimus being sad, but at least glad to know his mentor is resting well now. Optimus tells the Autobots they must find the 4 Omega Keys. However, Ratchet does question that didn't the cons already have them, and there was only a few of them, as during the war for Cybertron they did get them from Zeta Prime. But Optimus says the ones Zeta Prime had for the core of Cybertron were not the real Omega Keys, and that Zeta Prime had named them after the 4 Omega Keys stored in the Hall of Records, to honor them, and to show his campaign as new Prime. So, Optimus begins to decode the last 4 relics in the Iacon files. On the Nemesis, Megatron is on the wits about the counterattack until Dreadwing gives him an idea, with Megatron hatching a plan. So him, Slipstream, and Dreadwing head to Cybertron through the newly rebuilt space bridge, where they head to Kaon and find the resting place of Alpha Trion, with Megatron cutting his arm off. Optimus finds the first coordinates and sends RC, Smokescreen, and Jazz. On the Nemesis, Megatron has his new arm attached to where his old one was, and then he uses the power of the Forge of Solus Prime to build the Dark Star Saber. The Autobot team go into the temple in the desert and find the first key, but when they leave the temple, Megatron attacks them. Smokescreen still seems to die, and Megs tells the other two to give Prime a message that he wants a challenge. They return and tell Optimus, with Optimus arriving later. And that whole fight goes basically the exact same, just maybe a little bit more banter, and Optimus being horrified that not only did he use the Prime arm, but he used Alpha Trion, his mentor's own arm, which makes Optimus even more enraged. But just like the fight happened, the Star Saber would get shattered to pieces. But when all hope seems lost, Smokescreen is revealed to be alive, and he has the key. So, Optimus gets a second wind, and they manage to fight off Megatron and able to retreat with the key. With the Autobots being a bit sad at the Star Saber's destruction, but at least glad they got the first key. Optimus detects the next key, so he sends a team, Sideswipe, Springer, and Grimlock. But before they can get it, they would be interrupted by the Khan's team, Silas, and a few mech drones that are made from dead Viacons. Silas would take on Springer again, with it being a bit more of an even match. Sideswipe and Grimlock fight the mech drones, but they would become overwhelmed as they cannot feel pain. Even Grimlock, while he's able to rip through them, due to them not being able to feel pain, they begin to stab at Grimlock, and they just keep coming at him. Silas has one of the mech drones grab the key, but before they can kill the Autobots, the aerial bots arrive with a few others. They form Superion, saving these Autobots, while Silas retreats with the key. At the Ark, Smokescreen says if he was there, they would have stopped them, but RC and even Grimlock says he needs to knock it over his head, and how they were almost killed out there, with Smokescreen going quiet. Soon they detect the next key, so the next bot team is sent out. Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Smokescreen, and some Autotroopers. But when they arrive, they just in time dodge a bomb explosion, as Dreadwing, Hardshell, and several Insecticons attack. Smokescreen wants to fight them, but he is told to go and get the key while they handle the cons. Bulkhead fights Hardshell, with the rematch being a lot more even, as Hardshell fights harder than last time. Wheeljack fights Dreadwing, and the Autotroopers try to fight the Insecticons, with them able to hold their own due to the synthetic energon they've had. Bulkhead and Hardshell trade blows, but Bulkhead loses this fight as Hardshell manages to rip off Bulkhead's entire arm, and he cuts his chest up. Wheeljack sees this, so he fights with a fury like none other, and in a turn of events, he manages to get a stab right through Dreadwing's spark. He says this is for sea spray and jet fire. Dreadwing falls down, with his last words being, "You fought bravely. You have my deepest respect," as he goes offline, dying. Wheeljack charges at Hardshell and stabs his blade right through his arm, then he trades blows, with Bulkhead getting up and using his strength and one arm, and he and Jackie begin taking on the bug, while the Autotroopers keep doing with the Insecticons. Smokescreen makes it to the relic, but he would get ambushed by Barricade, who is being powered up by Dark Energon, using the last of the supply they had from Cybertron. And Frenzy is there, but he doesn't have any Dark Energon in his systems. They take down the kid, but before Barricade can kill Smokescreen, he is hit from the back, but he can't see who's doing it, as he keeps getting hit, and until he eventually uses a Dark Energon pulse boost to knock his attacker back, which is revealed to be Bumblebee, as Bumblebee is using Red Energon. Bumblebee and Barricade begin to fight, using their respective Energons against each other, while Smokescreen deals with Frenzy, beating him pretty easily. Bumblebee manages to get the last hit on Barricade, knocking him down, and at that moment both of their Energons run out. The two Autobots look to each other, but just before they're able to grab the key, they are fired on as a swarm of mech drones arrive, and they manage to grab the key, while also grabbing Barricade and Frenzy, and return to base. Bulkhead and Wheeljack meet up, and Smokescreen is bummed out about losing the key, with him continuing to be, until RC begins scolding him the same as Cannon, causing him to drive away. Jazz saying that she could have chilled out a bit, but she says that he needed to hear that. Even Grimlock agrees with her that he did need to hear that, to get it out of his head. During this, Bulkhead is put into medical treatment, as the last key is decoded, and it is revealed to be Smokescreen, to everyone's shock. The cons see this as well, and so Skywarp and Slipstream intercept Smokescreen with the Resonance Blaster, and they take him down the same. But just as the bots arrive, the two Decepticons kidnap Smokescreen, dragging him through a ground bridge. The Autobots are not sure what to do, as Optimus says they will find Smokescreen and rescue him. And that is where I'm going to leave this for now. Thank you all for watching. Next part, we get to the Season 2 finale. But yeah, until then, see you next time.